Are you a Chargers fan? Because if you are, you're probably pretty upset right now. And by probably, I mean you're on Twitter saying things like this. It's to be expected somewhat considering what just happened, which is Keenan Allen got traded. Allen is a bona fide Chargers legend, and wasn't far off from retiring with the team that drafted him. Not to mention, the move has left the Chargers very thin at receiver. But despite all that, and in all honesty, it was actually a really good move. Here's 3 reasons why. Well, actually it's more like 4, because the 4th one being you should subscribe to the channel. First, let's talk a little bit about Keenan Allen and the Chargers. Keenan leaves the team as one of the last remaining San Diego players. During his time with the team, he was a 6-time Pro Bowler, and also holds the record for team receptions and yards. It's also probably worth mentioning that all that success came during a time when Chargers coaches were not particularly great. Guys like Mike McCoy, Anthony Lynn, Brandon Staley, they are career ruiners, and yet somehow Allen has managed to put together a really impressive one. But not impressive enough for the current Chargers regime, led by Jim Harbaugh and Joe Hortiz. Sure, they were calling him a cornerstone, and he was one of the few players getting name-dropped in interviews. But it wasn't enough for him to not have to suffer the indignity of a pay cut the way Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa did. Unlike those two, he didn't agree to it. I think it's perfectly understandable that he didn't want to take a pay cut, but I also understand what the Chargers did. It's a reality in a league with no guaranteed contracts. Expecting the Chargers to do right by him would really mean that they're not playing the game correctly. And if you have a problem with that, you probably should want guaranteed contracts. But that's a whole other story. The point being that for as sad as it is that he's not going to finish his career as a Charger, it was the right move, probably for both sides. Allen gets to make a lot of money as a 32-year-old receiver in Chicago, while the Chargers get a clean slate cap-wise, which is what every new regime in the NFL needs. Speaking of regime, let's talk about the Chargers and Joe Hortiz and Jim Harbaugh and what they're doing. It's kind of almost hard to remember, but there was a time in Chargers land when everyone was fucking so happy with Joe Hortiz and Jim Harbaugh, which was about 24 hours ago as of this recording. And it's obviously because of the Keenan Allen move, and it makes sense because, it's an emotional issue, but it was the right one. And I think most important of all, it gives this new regime a chance to truly start over. In particular, Keenan Allen demands a lot of targets, for better or for worse. Yes, his performance was really great last year. He had over 1,200 yards. But the offense got stale, and teams knew what they were doing. Funny enough, Jim Harbaugh's brother, John, pointed that out on Sunday Night Football. And considering Joe Hortiz was also part of the team management there, it's no surprise that they've moved on. For as good as he is, the team doesn't win a lot with him at the focal point. That's not necessarily his fault, but it goes to show, though, that he's not exactly irreplaceable. All told, this allows the regime to bring in their guys, not having to deal with any lingering favoritism or seniority, and just start fresh for better or worse. Obviously, considering this is a Greg Roman-led offense, there should be some concern, but I still think, considering the receivers available in the draft, there's reason to be optimistic. Drafting at number 5, the Chargers were already in a good position when it comes to landing a wide receiver this year. It's highly improbable that one of Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, or Rome Odunze wouldn't be available. With the way mocks are shaking out right now, it looks like Jaden Daniels is going to go 3, and then 4, the Cardinals are going to take MH3 because they just signed Jonah Williams, which means it's very likely the Chargers are going to have a choice between Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze. I know a lot of people have Malik Neighbors way ahead of Odunze on the board, but they're actually probably closer as prospects, I think, in the league's eyes. And don't get me wrong, I'd probably prefer Malik Neighbors over Odunze, but I wouldn't hate Odunze. I know a lot of people are thinking that they're still going to draft a left tackle, or a right tackle actually in this case, at 5. But I think Odunze actually fits what they want to do quite well. Greg Roman wants everyone on the field blocking, and Odunze is considered a plus run blocker. And I know it's silly to talk about his run blocking when he's 6'3" and can run really good routes, and is able to come down with contested catches. But a part of me obviously is hoping that Greg Roman hears this and is like, oh yeah, it's a good idea. He's a good run blocker. Not to mention, with the extra 4th round pick they required, which is quite a great haul for a about to be 32-year-old receiver, could help them get another receiver in the draft. Maybe a sleeper type like Luke McCaffrey. Maybe Malik Washington falls. Who knows? It's also not the end of the world if they go right tackle, but obviously I think it's not a great idea. But still, if they do go that route, They could get a guy like Roman Wilson potentially in the second round, and then get another one of those guys in the fourth or fifth round. So the point being here, the Chargers have a lot of draft options, and the receiver room that looks pretty bad right now might not look so bad in a few months. And at the very least, it's going to be a very inexpensive one. So the most obvious reason that this is a good move by the Chargers is the salary cap ramifications. Specifically, the pay cuts and the Keenan Allen trade puts the Chargers in a really good position next year. Over the cap has them at about $101 million next year. And when they cut JT Woods, inevitably, it'll be 102, I guess. Of course, that doesn't include future draft picks and also filling out the entire roster. But still, they're going to have a lot of money next year. Which is why they're being so cutthroat, right? If they kept pushing it into the next year and Keenan Allen getting paid more as a result, it would have limited how much cap space they had next year, and also would have been unfair to the other guys who took the pay cuts. This not only gives them flexibility next year when it comes to signing free agents, it also helps them when it comes to acquiring players through trade who are looking for a new deal. Obviously, the Justin Jefferson thing is pie in the sky, but it is a little odd that the Vikings haven't exactly signed him already. And I think the fact that they got rid of Cousins and then traded for the 22nd pick tells me they're probably gunning for a guy like J.J. McCarthy. So they're probably going to keep Jefferson. The point being here that guys like that are actually a realistic target now that they've cleared up the space. This move ultimately was a take your medicine kind of move. Sure, maybe they didn't 100% have to do it because they already had saved some cap space, but overall it puts them in a good position moving forward when it comes to drafting and signing players or even trading for them. And even more so, it puts you in a better position to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks again for watching.